I now call the Powhatan County Planning Commission meeting to order. Mr. Van Gelder will lead us in the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance and direction in our collective effort to be good stewards of the public trust, make fair and wise decisions, and to keep Powhatan a wonderful place to live and work. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. We need to approve the September 6th meeting minutes. Does anybody have any amendments?
I have none.
Okay, anyone else? If not, I move we approve the September 6th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the administrative items. Mr.
Yep.
Chardane.
So
Chardon.
in your packet, you have the monthly activity report. The difference you'll note from last time, before, I believe the building and zoning reports were using different, one was calendar year, one was fiscal year. We've aligned those so they're running on the same schedule so you can compare the numbers directly, which we checked, I believe before they were, it's just the way we were labeling them gave the appearance that it was one year versus the other. And talked with the county administrator, and the suggestion that I believe some of you all had to maybe go to quarterly reporting where you can kind of pull more data together and then have a better picture of what's going on and see trends and things like that start to come out of it. Agreed that was a good idea. So we'll switch to the next one doing quarterly reports. And if you feel like that's not getting what you need, we can go back. But again, I think that'll, instead of just a month by month seeing little pieces, again, you can start to see more trends and things out of it. So,
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. We need to, and if there's nothing else for him regarding the administrative items, I would like to open it up to amend the agenda, which we do have one amendment. We're going to add a workshop in at the end of the meeting tonight. Any other
Yes.
amendments to the agenda?
If, in your packet, you turn to page 8, the minutes we just approved. We, at our last meeting, deferred 1606 AZ indefinitely, and it appears on our agenda again tonight. So I request that it be removed from the agenda since it's been deferred indefinitely. So number 3 on our agenda tonight, I'm asking that it be removed, since we've already dealt with it.
yeah, and the reason I put it back on the agenda was when we had the discussion before, my understanding was that staff was to investigate the possibility of more comprehensive rezoning or restructuring the ordinance versus adding that use to the RU district, which staff has done, and staff still believes the best recommendation for this case, again, just in staff's opinion, would be the code amendment.
But it is the exact same case that we deferred indefinitely, as our county attorney said. Once we do that, it disappears. So you cannot bring back, unless I'm wrong, Tom, you cannot bring back the exact same thing.
No, a motion to postpone indefinitely is the same as killing it.
Oh, so,
Yeah,
It's gone, right?
it's gone.
It's gone, so it can't come back again on the agenda tonight.
okay.
Not that particular item. It would have
Okay,
to
it's
be,
the exact same
it'd
item.
have to be a new item.
Okay.
We could bring him back in 6 months, is that correct? I think.
Postponing something indefinitely is the same as, it
Yeah,
allows a body to kill something without technically killing it, but it has the same effect, because once it's postponed indefinitely, it drops off and doesn't come back.
Okay.
So I'm requesting that we remove item 3 from the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Any other amendments? We'll now have the public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing there is no one, I'll close the public comment period. We do not have any presentations, so we will move into our public hearings.
Good evening. It's our first case tonight, 1604 CUP, Michael and Karen Thomas. The address of the subject property, 3110 Timber Trace Court, CUP for an accessory dwelling unit. The subject property is zoned R2 residential district. This is a map, vicinity map. Subject property has the purple outline. And as soon as this is removed, there you go, you can see it better. This is the zoning map, subject property. The yellow is the R2, the green, of course, is A10 agriculture. Several pictures. This is leading into the property, the driveway at the intersection with Timber Trace. This is looking back out along the driveway into the cul-de-sac. This is a principal dwelling. If you look to the right-hand side of the picture, the accessory dwelling unit is going to be back behind where that shed area is. I have another couple pictures. It's currently heavily wooded. This is approximately about where the applicants project it to be this time. Accessory dwelling unit in the R2 residential district shall not exceed 35% of the total gross floor area of the principal dwelling to which it is accessory. The proposed use fronts on Timber Trace Court is shown in the picture. Of course, access will be from the existing driveway. Subject property shown as rural preservation on the countywide land use plan map, and this conditional use is in general accord with the comprehensive plan. Reviewing agencies had no outstanding concerns. They had, obviously, the recommendations. Staff has no outstanding concerns, and staff has received no formal comments, or informal comments for that matter, from any citizens. Staff recommends that the request be subject to the list of conditions presented in the staff report if the Planning Commission does approve this case. And I'm available for questions. The applicants are here as well.
Okay. Would the applicant care to come forward and make a statement? If you don't have to. Okay, no problem. We will now have the public hearing on this case before we open it up to questions of staff. Anyone wishing to speak on this proposed CUP, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing there is no one, I'll close the public hearing and now open it up to questions, which I have several. Do you all?
Go ahead.
Okay. The house that is shown obviously exceeds 35% of the main dwelling.
The plans.
Yes, the plans,
Right.
yes. So you say staff doesn't have a problem with that, but that's kind of a problem, being it doesn't fit with the zoning ordinance.
What I've done, and Thomas, if they have any comment, can come up. I did speak to them and just make them aware they do have a cap. They probably have a little more square footage than was put on the paperwork to deal with. And before a building permit is submitted, we will verify those figures. However, they also have stated that they can adjust their plans accordingly.
Okay.
To meet that 35% cap, there will not be a problem.
I think I would feel more comfortable if I saw that myself a little bit with just a little more of a revised plan, but anyway, how about you all? Do you all have?
Well, I would think that it would be in the conditions, or in our, what we're going to ask to approve tonight, the actual limit would be 1,079 square feet, 1,179 square feet.
Well, we have it in the use standards, and maybe Tom can add to this. If we need to add it, we certainly can, but they are still bound, of course, by the zoning ordinance use standards.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance 35% is going to trump anything you do tonight. So putting a square footage in may be counterproductive if they determine their house is actually larger or different size than what is in here. So the 35% zoning ordinance language will control at the end of the day. Doesn't matter. I mean, that can't be overridden or there's no way around that. So there's really no need to add any protection tonight because the zoning ordinance will be the protection.
But then why do we get a staff report that shows 1,900 square feet, which is significantly over, so that we come up here confused? Why do we get a staff report that says that?
Yeah, I did not put in the 35% or put in all their figures, full figures, on that. So, but I did go back and talk to them yesterday and try to convey exactly what needs to be done.
I would just suggest that when something like this comes forward, you just put in 35%, and then the numbers can be done later.
Yeah.
I mean, then it keeps it where it should be, just being consistent.
Yeah, I think we probably can just refer back to the ordinance, that's the ordinance standard. And I did make the handouts tonight for everybody, just to clarify where, the section it came from, and the exact verbiage on it.
But we end up with a staff report that looks like it's ignoring the 35% as we come into this meeting,
Right.
okay? And I'm just suggesting that that's not the best way to handle this.
Right. Well, I'm like, as I said,
Well, it's not looking for,
I think I will omit any square footage
The
and
35, as
pertaining
long
to
as
what
we
Tom
understand
said, right?
35%, I'm cool. I don't-
Yeah. When we get to the stage, you know, where they're submitting, obviously, the building permit, you know, we're gonna be verifying anyway, and that's part of our process where we, you know, verify exactly square footage.
So
So
you
it's
actually,
really-
you actually, or somebody on staff goes and does that?
Yes. Yeah, we have a section, you know, obviously a zoning sign-off, you know, for approval on the building permit. So they forward it to us, and we look at it, make sure it meets all the zoning requirements.
I'm talking about the house that's sitting there now.
The house is sitting there now.
Yeah.
What I will do is go back, if they have any extra beyond, you know, what I can verify on the records, and use that. So, and I've been in consultation, I said with them about that. They have an addition apparently that's beyond what was shown. And we talked about that yesterday, and I wasn't aware of those extra figures that would bump it up somewhat. So,
We're not questioning any of that, just for consistency's sake in the future, I think that we'd like to see what's consistent with the ordinance, that's all.
We have a new condition, appears a couple times this evening, that I've never seen before, and it's condition 3. Y'all reworded that. This is the one on failure to comply.
It's for the NOV.
That's something new y'all decided to do?
we've had that in,
We've
as a
had that.
condition.
I think- I think-
Okay,
That's in every case.
okay.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Walker?
Do y'all understand all the conditions?
We do now, yes.
You do now? Okay.
It's a bit,
You want to?
Come
You
on
need
up
to
to the-
come up to the mic and just state your name for the record,
Right.
please.
so I'm Mike Thomas, my wife Karen, and we live at 3110 Temper Trace Court in Powhatan, Virginia. So, I work in a hospital, and I build things occasionally, like additions to my house. So, working the way through the paperwork and permitting is just like his first time, every time I do this. So, this was a little more involved than the additions. So, you know, getting the information together was a little more difficult. So, you know, understanding the limits wasn't exactly clear when we started out on this, but it's, you know, as we move through it, we've gotten a lot of help, and I think things are much clearer today than they were before.
You understand all the definitions of family? In other words, because we don't allow people, no, once her mother and father are no longer living in the house, you're not able to rent these accessory.
Yeah, that's
dwellings.
extremely clear, right, and yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And we have an extended definition of family, I think.
Well, I do not.
So anyhow, all right, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's that little thing that we read?
Go, yeah, I know. Go to the last page of the, I know, the green sheet.
All right, I move that we recommend approval of this conditional use permit. This motion is based on public necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice. Did I get everything in I needed?
I think so. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chairman, yeah, for example, on this one, there is a proposed resolution
Okay.
in the staff report.
Yeah,
If you make a motion to adopt as per the proposed agreement, they've already added those words for you. Necessity, convenience, general welfare, and good zoning practice. So if the motion is, I move that we approve this as per the
the
recommended
proposed
resolution.
resolution
Then
for
you've
the
already
CUP.
said it.
Yes.
But if you make
Okay.
any adjustments or anything, you can't use that, right?
Then you're gonna have to say it, because now we're not adopting. But
Okay.
just for future reference, if you're adopting the resolution as the staff proposes, they add those words for you, so you don't have to actually say them.
Thank you. Okay, second CUP.
Okay. This is 1605 CUP, Melissa Catone, 4230 Pierce Road. This is a CUP to operate a child daycare center.
Did y'all vote?
Subject property is currently zoned R2, single-family residential district. vicinity map with, once again, the subject property outlined in purple. Zoning map with, once again, you have the yellow, of course, R2, and you have the green as A10. This is down Pierce Road, both sides of the road. You can see the driveway, the mailbox. This is obviously the rear yard. That's the playground area, of course. Looking out towards the rear of the house. A little closer, obviously view playground area. As you can see, as I mentioned, staff report is somewhat screened. You do have trees, around it. So it's somewhat of a natural buffering. This across the street. And this is another view back onto the subject property showing the driveway. The applicant wishes to care for more than 5 children at a residence, which requires the CUP. Proposed use located on Pierce Road. Access will be obviously from the existing driveway that's shown. Subject property is rural residential, and it's in general accord with the comprehensive plan. Once again, this case, reviewing agencies made recommendations, had no outstanding concerns. Staff has not received any comments, and staff has no concerns, with this case. Once again, staff recommends requests be subject to the list of conditions presented in the report if approved by the Planning Commission. And also, of course, I'm available for questions. The applicant is here, and she is available also.
Would the applicant care to make a statement? Okay, thank you. We'll now have the public hearing on this CUP. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing there is no one, I will close the public hearing and now open it up for questions of staff or the applicant. Any question? You all have-
don't.
Okay, that sounds good. I believe I don't have any myself. Mr. Cox?
I'd like to recommend that we approve case 1605-CUP as presented by staff.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, obviously, we're skipping item number 3 and moving on to 4.
Yeah, so this is 16-07AZ, proposed zoning ordinance code amendment to section 83-362, conditional uses in the RC district. And this would propose to add light manufacturing, assembly, or fabrication as a conditional use. And essentially, this would be the assembly of pre-manufactured products. And I believe this came forward when an existing business who currently sells items was interested in actually assembling those items, doing an expansion on site to have that capacity. They're in RC zoning, which currently does not list that as a use. So staff had proposed to add that as a conditional use in there to allow Planning Commission to consider a conditional use permit, and if it's appropriate, place conditions on it. This was considered at the board's workshop in August, I believe, and staff would recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions before or after public hearing.
Okay, we will have the public hearing on this case. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Seeing there is no one, I will close the public hearing and now open it up for questions. Do you all have questions?
Yes.
Okay, you go, because I have a couple myself.
This RC, of course, is a transitional base district, and the comprehensive plan did away with this zoning category. And so we created, or we put RC and RU in base transition area, which were not to be expanded, and that's exactly what you're doing with this, is expanding it. Now, in the latest vision statement that our supervisors had, one group took aim at the zoning ordinances about allow for multiple interpretations and being confusing, and I quite frankly, that's what we're doing tonight. If we want to expand RC or RU, then we may need to make those legitimate zoning districts. Expanding them when our zoning ordinance does not want them expanded is not the way to go. You're messing up the intent of our zoning ordinance, and you're undermining it. And quite frankly, I don't support that at all.
Yeah, and I would disagree. I think there needs to be a balance between supporting existing businesses and transitioning out.
It's not that we're not supporting existing businesses. What we said when we put those two transition districts in is that they would be rezoned.
And if the county, say, wanted to go forward with some proactive rezonings to do away with all of RC, I think that would be one thing. But we haven't taken that step, so we do have our our C-zone properties that we, good or bad, have to live with until they are undone. So this proposal, I wouldn't see it as an expansion because we're not proposing to rezone a property that's not already RC and adding it. I understand your point that we're expanding it in the sense that we're adding more uses. If we were looking at a site that was undeveloped and somebody wanted to rezone it to RC, no, comp plan wouldn't support that, zoning ordinance wouldn't support that. That's truly expanding it. In this case, again, we have some existing zonings that if there's a proposal and we can leverage that to do away with it and have a new zoning category, I think that's great. But again, the reality is until the county is interested in comprehensively going through and undoing these, we have some that we need to live with. So that's what I mean by supporting some existing businesses that may not want to go through a comprehensive rezoning for a particular use that we could address through a code amendment.
But that is in fact what the board said they wanted when they adopted our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, and again, this started before I started with the county, but my understanding was at the board's workshop, they instructed staff that this was what they wanted. So that you know, if the planning commission doesn't agree with it, you can make that recommendation to the board, and then they can weigh their desires between their version versus what they expressed to staff in the workshop.
I'm sure some other folks have some feelings, but at the end of this, I'm going to propose an indefinite deferral, just like we did on the one that was like this last month. So, sorry.
What did the board discuss on the 15th?
That one I was not at, but my understanding was staff had talked with an existing business who was interested again in expanding to some manufacturing, and staff proposed this as the way to do it. And my understanding was the board was interested in it.
So they can't go forward without us making this change, is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, yeah. My understanding is they might relocate elsewhere outside of the county where there's ready-to-go zone properties. And regarding indefinite deferral, you know, when staff or the board requests the planning commission to review something and make a recommendation, you know, just my feeling, planning commission has a duty to consider it and send a recommendation on either yay or nay. Yeah, we support it and we think it's good, or here's some changes we would like to see, or no, we don't believe in it, we think it's wrong, and here are the reasons for it. But indefinite deferrals are unusual to me. I have not dealt with one, but it would seem like a way to bypass the planning commission's duty to make a recommendation to the board.
If in this situation where it's a board initiated, indefinite deferral is not an option.
Yep.
In fact, there's a
Yeah,
statutory
yeah.
time limit. I don't remember what it is, but you have a statutory time limit in which you're required.
To act on it?
Yeah.
to act on
Do we have a formal request from the board, or is this hearsay?
I don't believe we do.
Okay,
You know,
thank you.
that's an extra step we could add to the process that delays things if we have to do that, to have it stamped by the board every time. I think it's, again, this one started before me, so just trying to bring it through the process as best we can. If we need something more formal or official from the board to say that they wanted it, then we can do that in the future. But I would hope the relationship would not be necessary where staff can bring things to the planning commission in an expedient manner.
Well, as I've talked with a number of the board members recently about their meeting, there is difference of interpretation on what they said at that meeting already.
Sure.
And it's not a question of the difference in relationship. Is as I talk to different board members, I hear different things. That's
Yeah, and again, kind of,
and a representation that this is something they want.
yeah, and kind of coming into the tail end of this one, in the future, there won't be that where I'm bringing something forward that I wasn't here for the beginning on, you know, or if I know the planning commission, that's not the route they want to go. When staff talked with these businesses and applicants, they were proposing this to them as a viable option, where in the future, if that's not really the direction we want to go, when I meet with people that might want to do something like this, I can know that, you know, that that's not necessarily the most viable route to it. But again, that wasn't the case where this one started from.
How difficult is it for a county to proactively rezone things? I mean, not terribly difficult. You know, say hypothetically, you know, in a couple of these cases, you know, that we had tonight.
Yeah, and I've done some of those. The process itself, the technical process of going through rezoning, not necessarily difficult. It's not unlike any other one. I would say more the political willingness or getting over concerns. I've dealt with ones where, in my opinion, the rezoning that the county was doing saved citizens the cost of applying. It was in every way in their favor, but still can be very difficult to change something. People are, you know, suspicious about what this change is going to mean, or they've lived with this zoning for a long time, and so I think that's the more difficult and challenging part can be, you know, working to get consensus from various stakeholders on it. The process itself, not difficult, but.
And I don't even know if I can ask this question, but the business that is interested in this change, where is it located?
On 60, that's as much as I know. Mr. Altman had given me some information on it, but again, I'm trying to treat it more like a generic code amendment because it's not an application from a specific business, so don't want to focus too much on just
Okay.
them
I was
because,
just curious.
you know, again, that's great, but also needed to Mr. Cox's point, consider the cons that, you know, maybe you want to focus too much on this one business and what's good for them. Do we want this for everybody along
Right.
60? So if it's helpful, I can investigate the specific business that was the impetus for this. But again, kind of looking at it, does it make sense for RC generally or not?
Now, how urgent is the board to want to consider this?
I don't think that urgent. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
haven't-
think I can, I've talked to my supervisor, he's never even mentioned it. I mean, so I don't know about you if you,
I talked with mine
yeah.
at noon.
Yeah, I don't think this is on the radar. I mean, really. Could we,
Where was it initiated?
March,
Yeah, from Mr. Altman and his discussions with the applicant and whatever discussion he had with the board at their August workshop.
Could we, not indefinitely, but could we
Defer it.
defer
That's what I
this to
said. Let's defer
get
this.
some clarity?
I would
Yeah.
support that.
Yeah, we-
I
I think we would all feel more comfortable.
If the board is in
Yes.
a big hurry, we have in years past, on very scant occasions, sent up a recommendation, a no recommendation, so the board could look at it.
yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
I think we
I'm
could
looking at
defer it,
urgency,
though.
too,
I
but I'm
really
not
think
hearing
we
it
have the
necessarily.
time.
Yeah, and,
I don't have any sense of urgency on.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I
alright.
really think we have the time. I don't
Sure.
think it's like something uber pressing. So I think we should defer it.
I'm fine with that.
and you can put a time on it as when brought back by staff.
Yeah,
right? Can we do that, Tom?
No, we need to defer it to a specific date.
Yeah,
We
30-day
defer-
deferral.
Just up
You
to
can do
30
30 or
days.
60, you
Yeah.
can defer
Right.
to your December meeting.
yeah. Do you guys want a 30 or 60?
I'll support 30 days.
Okay. I move we defer case 16-07-AZ for a 30-day deferral. Any questions or comments on the motion?
And by 30-day deferral, you mean to the next meeting?
To the next
our
meeting,
next
yes.
meeting,
Mhm.
yeah, which is on the first. right?
Yes. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Percolate a little bit.
Ready? All right, the last case that, for you to consider tonight is 1601 PR, private road case. The owners, Craig and Lois Starr, own two parcels of land referenced to 3813A and 13B. The request is to construct a two-lot private road. Subject properties are currently zoned A10. This is the location of the two parcels. They are existing. It's off of Pierce Road. This is the zoning, A10. And this is the applicant's proposed plat prepared by Mr. Kofer. This is the approximate location along Pierce Road looking east. This is looking back west towards Giles Bridge Road. And this is looking into the subject property. As I previously stated, Mr. and Mrs. Starr own two properties. The 10.5 acre piece, currently has a fee simple strip down to Pierce Road. The 3 acre tract does not have legal access at this point. So the intent of this request is to gain access for an existing parcel to allow it to come down through the 30-foot fee simple strip of land from the 10-acre piece. It would be constructed to a 2-lot private road, which is a driveway, 10-foot wide gravel, 2-foot cleared on each side, 14-foot vertical clearance, and a road maintenance would be set up involving both parcels. We've had it is in general accord with the comprehensive plan. We've had no outstanding concerns from staff regarding this issue, and we have received no formal comments from citizens on this request. Staff, based upon that, we have not had any concerns. We are recommending the Planning Commission approve the private road case. Mr. Kofer, the applicant's agent, is present, and I can attempt to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Mr. Kofer, would you care to make a statement? Okay. We don't usually have, well, we don't have public hearings on private road cases. However, we do allow for any kind of public comments. So anyone wishing to speak in regards to this private road, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Okay. Seeing there's no one, we'll open it to questions. Do you all have any questions regarding this case? Okay. This is,
My district.
yeah, another bill
Another
district.
bill,
Yeah.
okay. I move that we approve 16-02-PR.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, looks like our last item on the agenda for this meeting is the remote attendance policy.
Yeah, so this was just something, the board has it in their bylaws. I don't know if they've used it, Tom, or some of you may know, but I don't believe they have. But it's in the board's bylaws, so the Planning Commission, just for discussion purposes, if you all have an interest in having the same policy as the board, a modified policy, or as you currently do, no policy, not permitting remote attendance. So in here have a copy of what the board has, as well as a copy of the state code, which is required to be in compliance with, which the board essentially mirrors that. Just in here for Planning Commission discussion and see if you have any interest.
Okay, I'll open it up for discussion. Anyone have any comments?
I do. Tom, I'm understanding this thing, this is pretty much in a emergency type situations or extenuating circumstances and has limitations. Maybe you could discuss the framework of this and its limitations
Yeah.
or not?
It's designed for that situation for the member cannot be there. The board has done it once, and it was actually one of the board members was out of state and could not be in physical attendance. There's some pretty strict requirements. You have to have a quorum of members present. The member that comes in remotely has to identify exactly where they are. For example, the Hyatt Regency in Maui, you have to identify the room 306, and you have to identify that, and then they can participate just as if they were in the meeting here. The other thing is they have to be set up, and we did it with the board member, with a conference phone and the microphone so that the citizens can hear everything that member speaks, so that there's all
No
communica-
discerning, yeah.
And there's no video involved, just audio?
No video involved. There's a cap, I don't remember off the top of my head, I didn't look, but I
Three.
think it's 3 or 4 times a year.
Three.
And so it's really designed for
2 or 3, I thought.
those
Is that
situations.
three for-
Two.
for a
2 or
person
25%
for the
of
commission in whole?
Per person or per commission?
Per person,
yeah, for each individual
for
member.
each individual. So it's designed for the situations where it's an important meeting, you don't want to miss the vote, but you're going to be out of town, or you're sick, or you're in the hospital or something that you
So
can
pretty
still.
extenuating circumstances.
Not really. I mean, from what he said, it's basically just out of town.
Yeah, if you-
Currently, what do we have? Just no attendance policy?
We don't have an attendance policy currently.
Yeah.
The way state law is written, unless you have a remote policy, you cannot do it. And so step one is you have to adopt a remote policy, and that's what Brett's showing you, is that the board adopted one. I think we did it last year with the most current bylaws, so that the option is available. And there's some other requirements of notice requirements that you have to give the chairperson notice in adequate time to get everything set up and all that. So
It's labor intensive.
it's a lot of work to do it.
Yeah, it's
So-
labor intensive.
Well, if I could add to this, so I think I'm the one on the commission that travels the most with my work, but, and I serve a kind of a national position, so this would be really attractive to me, not that I would see me doing it more than 3 times a year, but when I travel with work, my evenings are still totally free, so I may be out of state, but I still would be able to participate in a planning commission meeting. Today, for example, there was a chance I was gonna travel, but I ended up not traveling today. And this would be really useful to me, so that I'd see maybe twice a year, where I would not have to miss a meeting for work, miss one of these meetings, because I was traveling with my job.
As a practical matter, with many of the things that we look up, I have some concerns about this. Example, our workshop meeting that we had, where we're sitting, working with maps. That can't practically work from a remote site. Not what we did last Thursday, just.
Yeah, I disagree. If I had a map in front of me, and you had a map in front of you,
Ma'am,
and I could
we-
still
we- we
contribute to
we had
conversation.
We had enough trouble with the 4 of us looking at it.
Yeah, and I missed that meeting.
I know.
Because I mean, we had all different dates that some of us couldn't make that meeting. The date that was picked was the one I couldn't make. So I could have participated in that meeting at least to some degree, but there was no votes taken at that meeting. So that still would have been me giving feedback, sharing my ideas, and at the end of the workshop, you having at least some feedback rather than me relying on Brett or somebody else to represent my point of view.
With this, would it be strictly for this remote policy? Is it public or for both the public hearing and workshops, or either or either?
What's meeting? I mean, the law
Meeting,
doesn't
so period.
distinguish on meetings.
Okay, I didn't know if it distinguished like a workshop as a, okay.
My observation over the years is people don't, usually when people want to remote in, it's because they have an interest in the items on the agenda. And so if they have an interest in the items on the agenda, they're usually going to be pretty familiar with what's going on. And so typically, that's where I've observed it. I've not observed it at a planning commission level. It's always been at a city council or board of supervisors level. But a lot of times, it's that member has to be gone, but they don't want to miss that vote. They want to be on record that they opposed it or supported it or whatever. That typically is the motivation.
So
most
it
of
is
the
a
time.
voter record that can be done at a remote site.
Yeah, and in fact, the minutes have to reflect where they were. The minutes reflect their votes and their statements just the same as everybody else's.
So,
I was going to say, I'll be candid, I'm not thrilled with it. The reason being is I've been on boards where you call in remotely because of geographical constraints, and I find, just me personally, you're never not as engaged, but it's hard to be as engaged or, with it as you are when you're at the meeting. And in the board, I can get, because they have a lot of meetings. They have more meetings than the planning commission. I mean, the planning commission, we have the workshops that are coming in and stuff, but we, for the most part, meet one Tuesday a month, which is pretty set. So I don't know if I'm thrilled with the idea of remote meetings.
Yeah, I feel like it's very exclusive not to give some flexibility, especially if it's become pretty commonplace across boards these days with how mobile society is, especially with jobs and technology.
is there an approval process with this?
No.
Or is like you got to, that's your limit, the end?
No, you just ask and it's done.
Okay, so the only limitation is twice a year, right?
The limitation, 25% or twice a year, which in our case would be, yeah. And the,
Right,
well, no,
25.
25% of the meetings would be
Three.
three,
Yeah.
yeah.
I believe it, whichever's
Three
fewer.
maximum, if
that
that
what's
was
in-
even used, maximum.
But the main issues, and like we have it in the board meeting, is the
No, it's
notice
whichever is fewer,
requirements.
2 or 25%.
That you have to give notice by, I think we have in there noon.
The day
Noon-
before or
noon the
something
The
like
day
that,
before,
yeah.
so
I
that
think
we have
it's
time to
day
get the
before.
technology up to date.
It says 25%, 2 or 25%, whichever is fewer.
Okay, that may be. I've never seen more than one in a year from.
Okay, I'm
particular members.
just reading it so
Well,
that everybody
that's
knows
probably-
what the,
Yeah, and it
governing-
gives final approval to the chairman,
is the other question I had.
although it doesn't say, what the grounds for considering yea or nay are. It just rests with the chairman. So
Basically, it would rest with me.
Correct.
If, the person could remotely do it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, as written, again, you have some leeway to change this. You can't make it more inclusive than the state code allows, but, and Tom could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're able to make it more restrictive, where you can do fewer meetings, or you could say regular meetings but not workshops, or,
Okay.
again, I think you can rein it in, you just can't expand the
Okay,
boundaries of
okay.
it.
Well, one of the things the state code says too, if I remember correctly, is that it must be applied uniformly. So whatever you adopt,
Has to be equal to
yeah,
every member.
you can't give a chairman discretion. I mean, there's no, it must, I'm pretty sure that's in there somewhere. I forgot to look at it this morning, but, I think the standard is it has to be applied uniformly. So whatever standard you adopt has to be adopted across the board. So you could say you can call in if you're ill, but you can't call in if you're on vacation, or you can call in if you're.
Oh, I see.
But you,
And because the board does it, that doesn't mean we necessarily have to do it?
right, you could have
Just
different
asking.
standards. You could say if a member is, we can do once a year vacation, or you could do.
Okay.
It just has to be a uniform policy that applies equally to everybody.
But if I
Okay.
understand correctly, board members can miss a meeting. This just shows an added level of their own motivation to still participate in a meeting.
It does. And again, my experience has been a lot of times it's a political issue. The board member's gonna be gone, but it's an issue he doesn't wanna get accused of skipping the vote on.
Skipping out, yeah, it's, yeah.
And so a
it's more
lot of
that,
times
probably.
for board members in particular, it's political that it's a meeting where they wanna be in the minutes that they voted on an issue.
Mhm.
And again, that's been my observation as often as not, that was the hot button issue, is for board members or city council members, that they actually weren't accused of skipping a vote.
With a 5-member board and commission, that one vote could be deciding factor.
Well, and it can be. That's the other reason where they know it's gonna be 2-2,
Oh, I see.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
and
And we've had that before, where people miss a 2-2 vote, and we don't have a tiebreaker sitting around like some.
No, but it just goes to the next meeting.
Huh?
It just gets moved to the next meeting.
It's a
Well,
tiebreak.
yeah, that's true. You can move it to the next meeting, but.
Well, Mr. Walker,
What?
what are your feelings?
Well, I'm not totally opposed to it. I'm still wondering where our laptops are.
I don't think we can worry about holding our breath on that one.
Yeah, we were promised laptops, what, 6 years ago?
There-
And I
So we don't
promised.
have to carry this.
And I
Oh, oh,
promised, and
oh,
I
and
promised
there-
the county administrator that I would learn how to use it.
They're with your email.
The board is,
Huh?
The laptops are with your email.
but I kind of share with Bill's. I guess, my opinion is that I don't love it either. I think we should all try to make them, but I understand sometimes people out, the board is doing it. I share Bill's concerns that if there's something that's visually intensive, like we're going over maps and stuff like that, it's not appropriate, because it's just hard to do that interface. I deal with record drawings and looking at drawings all the time, and that's hard to do that remotely. So,
Maybe we could do something
with yes, with limitations, I guess?
Yeah, with limitations, and we could discuss
That's
the
fine.
limitations, like workshops, no, maybe just because that's more interactive, but public hearings, yes.
Yeah,
I
it's got its
mean,
limitations too, or it's written right here, so.
The question, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Okay? We've functioned for years without it. Why are we doing it?
Progress.
No, just with any change, the question is why?
Because it's the 21st century.
I'm not in favor of this at all. I guess that's because I'm in the 20th century.
Well, I must be the 19th.
I mean,
It's a
I
But
way
I
for
don't-
people
I don't-
not to be excluded when
Yeah,
there are
I-
extenuating circumstances, because they want to participate, or if there are votes that we know are important. And if the board's doing it, and lots of boards do it, and we're trying to align with the board, you can see.
I'm not trying to
for it.
align with the board necessarily on all things, but,
The board has a lot of things that we don't do. One, because they're making the final decision, and we're recommending decisions, with the exception of private roads.
Private roads. Yeah. And we used to do site plans, which was another, in other words, they were our final say, but anyhow, I don't have in other words, we could work on it, dress it up, and come up with some ideas. It's not a thing that we need to do tonight necessarily. I
This was
don't
for
think.
discussion tonight, correct?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we
no-
discussed it.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, if it's something the planning commission wants brought back, staff could develop a proposal. If not, then, simply for discussion, and it's not, again, wouldn't require deferral or anything like that. It simply wouldn't reappear until such time as, a majority of the planning commission wants it to reappear.
do you think you're going to need to use this a lot, truthfully? I mean, just
No,
being
I
candid,
don't. The
like,
2 meetings I missed were vacations that happened before I was even appointed to this
Right.
commission, so I didn't even know it was gonna
yeah, I
factor
didn't
into
know,
it.
I'm just asking, being candid, do you think this
Yeah.
is something that's
No,
really
but
gonna?
I work nationally, I call into meetings all the time. I think that it's a productive way people work these days, and if I were to be, like I was to be out of state tonight, I could just miss the meeting, or I would take every effort to call in and be part of the discussion, engage in these proposals, go on record voting, and in those cases where I do travel, because I travel with my job, that's the reality of it. Do I think I would use it twice a year? I do not. Do I think it's exclusive of you not to let somebody like me who travels with work to not have this option? Karen, you travel with work? Why would we not be inclusive to let us have this option? If we say I'm traveling with work and I'm too busy, I'm just gonna miss the meeting, that's also an option that we would make. I understand your point with the workshops, but like I said, it was a luck of the draw. People had different dates that worked or didn't work, so I missed the last workshop. So, there were other dates I could have done it. There were other dates you couldn't do it, so I missed the workshop. Would I have called in? Yes, I would have called in. I would have had the maps out, I would have followed along, and I would have called in so that I took the extra effort to continue to engage and do my responsibility as a appointed commissioner on this body.
So by not supporting you, we're being exclusive, is what you just said.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay,
exclusive
I
to the
would like to have a
opportunity.
vote on it this evening.
Let's have a discussion. Let's not vote, because it's like, yeah.
That's my argument as to why I am in support of it.
Okay. Brett, I will call you this week and let you know how to proceed.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Moving on. Let's go to the workshop.